Welcome aboard to the Love Boat Project, episode number 2. I am your host, Mike Taylor. This is my co-host, Mike Robertson. This is a deep dive through every Love Boat episode. So far, episode 2. Hello, welcome aboard again, my friend.
Yeah, now I know where everything is. I feel like, I feel like an experienced sailor. I could probably tie some sort of knot. I'm feeling very nautical. I even wore this shirt.
I like that.
Which has an anchor on it.
Yeah, I dropped the ball on the, that's nautical. I like that.
It's not funny. A deep bench. It's not a deep bench of nautical clothing. So
what a great spelling bee word too. You know what I mean? Skookle. Throw that one on there.
No shot. Yeah,
Scrabble. No shot.
If the Love Boat ends up on the Skookle in one of these later seasons, I'll be very impressed.
One could only hope. Imagine the accents. They're not throwing confetti. They're throwing pretzels. You know what I mean? Throwing pretzels and Yingling, off the frickin' dock. Anyway, but welcome back. We are here to discuss episode 2. Episode 2 is titled A Tasteful Affair, O'Dale, the main event. Again, every Love Boat episode has 3 stories. And as we talked about in episode 1, there's 3 different directors too.
When we get into it, I will have questions about the main event. Because I think generally they're obvious titles, and I don't know that one was.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. I
had to go back and look because at first I was like, Tasteful Affair, that actually makes sense, but that's not the one that I'm thinking it is. So, or maybe it is. That's the thing. I don't know which is which.
I find it funny too, like before we go into it. So every episode has these 3 stories, 3 directors, 3, right? I can't remember if it was like this in the first one. Was there a story that was like, you know what I mean? That had just so much more camera time than the others? Because this episode really, one story was just like the whole episode.
The only thing I can think is, and I thought they had the same thought, is there seems in the first episode there was a crew themed story. So that kind of goes across the thing. Mm-hmm. There really was no crew themed story on this one, except for everybody trying to nail John Ritter.
It was so weird.
I think the difference is that you're right. The John Ritter storyline dominated 2 things.
Right.
And I do wonder if that is a function of somebody that is a star on the rise and they get more, or if, which I also think is possible, somebody got less, because it's a very oddly paced episode in terms of the divvying of storyline and just in the storylines themselves.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up about like who had more, which story was bigger, or just had more. It just made more sense, right? Maybe not more sense, but it seemed to be a little more thought out. I say that because if you remember in episode 1, Suzanne Summers was on that episode. Episode 2, John Ritter's in that episode. 1977 is when Three's Company launched. As a matter of fact, I'm going to act like no one can hear me shuffling all these pieces of paper in my hand.
Just off the top of your head.
Yeah, just top of my head. Just stuff I just know everything about. So it was interesting. So he appeared as, what is this? He had a recurring role as Reverend Matthew Fordwick on the drama series The Waltons from October 72, December 76. And because he wasn't a weekly cast member, he had time to pursue other roles, which he did until 1976, which he left for a starring role in the hit sitcom Three's Company. Something I didn't know about Three's Company. It's an Americanized version of the 1970s British television series Man About the House. I did not know that.
I feel like a lot of shows in the 70s were just British shows, because Archie Bunker, I think, is actually a British show.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I mean, Love Boat was an ABC show. Three's Company was an ABC show, right? And if I'm not mistaken, Charlie's Angels was an ABC show.
I think that's right. So is it also that thing where these are the first 2 episodes of the season of the series too, but it's like you're ramping up. Like, I wonder if you go back and look at the live airing of this, is there like a Three's Company heavy commercial tie-in?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
because even on before or after, you know what I mean? Like, it's very heavy Ritter in an episode that has Sherman Hemsley in it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Well, because so let's just say a viewer, right, who had never seen Three's Company, right? So you're going into it blind, right? The viewer sees it. I wonder how many people would be left at the end of that episode going, "Hey, that John Ritter. I'd like to see a little more of that John Ritter. He really is a
And I think
fine."
we're going to run into this too, because it's hard to put yourself back in that place in time. We have always known John Ritter, right? So it's
Yeah.
like he's an established star. Like there is all sorts of Jack Tripper in this episode. But
Mm-hmm.
if Three's Company is just starting out, that's just a coincidence. And then maybe it's a little over the top. I don't know. I thought, long story short, I thought the three leads were amazing in this.
I agree. I agree.
I think the actual the stories were maybe not up to snuff, but I thought the stars of this thing were really good.
Oh, I think Jacqueline Smith came off like a star, like just the
Mhm.
presence on camera. So
Yeah.
let's get into this, right? So again, October 1st, 1977, the network was ABC. Brief synopsis on these three stories we're talking about. So first story is listed as a tasteful affair. Unhappy Jeanette Bradford, Jacqueline Smith, takes a cruise to sort out her marital problems, not realizing that Dennis Kingsley, played by Dennis Cole, the widower she's just met, is the private detective that her husband has hired to keep an eye on her. Okay. Then there's the main event. The main event deals with sausage magnate Maurice Marshall, played
Sausage
by
King, by the way,
Sausage King,
which is
not
absolutely
magnet.
the original Abe Froman.
Did you like? He had his business card was in the shape of a sausage.
It was it was more about his employment than Jimmy Walker killing the bugs was on the last episode.
Well, remember Jimmy Walker's T-shirt said "Born Killer" on it, so you
And
knew
he
it
had a
kind of.
bug on top of the van, and somehow
Did
I
he?
think Sherman
He got the
Hemsley was
first
more
parking. Yeah,
yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, no, I agree. Boards the ship with his wife Stella, played for LaWanda Page, who we'll get to know a little bit more in just a moment. Their frequent bickering comes to the fore when they get stuck together in an elevator.
So here
And
you go.
it's
So
funny
here's the
because
point.
that's the entire storyline.
Well, and I guess the main event makes sense because they were fighting the whole time. But honestly, until
Eh,
you just said that,
yeah.
I thought the other one was a tasteful affair because of the sausage, and I couldn't figure out why Jacqueline Smith was the main
Okay.
event.
Okay.
That was my
makes sense.
confusion.
Okay. I mean, I see what you're saying.
The third one very obvious.
O'Dale, yeah. So this is what we're talking about, the John Ritter storyline. O'Dale is about the plight of a dumped boyfriend, Dale Reinhardt, played by John Ritter. A lot to unpack here. Who takes a cruise dressed in drag to get his ex-girlfriend back. Well, that's okay. There's more to it than that. And winds up sharing a stateroom with a jilted bride. Susan, played by the talented Tova Feldshuh, a name I don't think I've ever.
Screen.
Yeah, so she was great. So let me just go through. Let's get to know some of our guest stars. But before we do, I want to say this. In the beginning of every episode of The Love Boat, am I imagining this? Didn't it used to flash pictures of the guest stars
I have
instead
that
of
very
just
note.
the names?
Yeah, I think eventually it gets there. I just assumed it was always, but you really notice it when it's not there.
Yeah. It's. I don't know. Especially like at the
Especially
first
'cause it's
episode,
like
Suzanne Summers and Jacqueline Smith.
Well,
Like, why not?
and I
have
feel
their
like it gives
image?
me because they usually would do it in some sort of like posed thing or whatever. It's it gives you a sense of who's going to be in here.
Yeah.
And because it's a 45-year-old show, it would be like, oh man, look how young that person looks or something like that. Like, yeah, I think I hope it comes soon because it is missed.
Well, I wonder too. Then my other thought was, okay, when they had the photos or the video, were they in character with their little snapshot,
I
or were
think
they
they
like?
were supposed to be.
Okay.
Like it wasn't like a headshot from
Right.
their agency.
It
Because I
was
think
like,
a lot of that video I sent you a couple weeks ago where it was all the YouTube, or it was YouTube, like they put everybody together.
yeah,
A lot of those guys are in like tuxedos and stuff. So it's clearly like
gotcha.
everybody's wearing a
Captain's
tuxedo on
dinner,
the show. Yeah,
that
exactly.
sort of thing.
So.
Okay, so look, let's get to know our guest stars of this episode a little bit more. And the first one I'm gonna go to is Sherman Hemsley. First of all, I for some reason thought it's kind of a Sherbert thing. I I've never written his name out, so I thought it was Sherman Helmsley. So you
Yeah,
can see where I would have gone. I'm thinking, maybe he's related to Hunter. Who knows?
gotcha.
So
Makes
Sherman
sense.
Helmsley. So born and raised in South Philadelphia, by the way. I don't know
Yes.
if you knew that. I did
Well,
not
that's
know that.
where, because if you don't know if you remember, but Amen took place in Philadelphia, I
I
believe.
do remember Amen. I remember that guy played
Yeah.
the deacon yeah. That was a great show. I'm glad I
Yeah.
was. So it's interesting. Unlike the characters he played, Hemsley was shy and an intensely private man, described by some as reclusive. He avoided the Hollywood limelight, and little of his personal life was public knowledge beyond the facts that he never married and he had 0 children.
Unlike
Which,
the Sausage King, who had 2 children that he couldn't name.
but the character, if you just take, I mean, he always played a form of that George Jefferson character, right?
I mean, that was basically George
Yeah.
Jefferson in that show. I mean,
It's so weird to think that whole thing was just a gag or a gimmick, a character, whatever it is.
it means it makes him a great actor.
Yeah. Well, it's like Gary Coleman wasn't always Arnold, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of different. So, yeah, All in the Family ran as 73 to 75. He appeared in 78 as George Jefferson. Jefferson started in 75, so it had been on the air.
So he's probably the biggest star on this thing at that time. Well, I guess Charlie's Angels is probably bigger, but
I mean, it depends. I mean, look, this is back when what? How many networks were there? 3? So like every show was pulling in crazy numbers. So I think it would be hard to equate.
These are all massive stars, probably.
Yeah, massive stars. So then I was thinking too, like, well, how much money? That's what I want to find out. I want to find how much. I would love to know episode like paydays for some of the guest stars, just out of pure curiosity. But I haven't.
No, I don't even know how. Yeah, it's. I mean, you always hear about it's always the Ted Danson thing, right? He made $1 million, but I mean that's 15 years later. So
right. So the next person is from that same episode. The main event is LaWanda Page. LaWanda Page is an incredibly interesting person. I remember her from Sanford and Son playing Aunt Esther. I love that show as a kid.
That's just all I know her from.
Same here.
Yeah.
What's funny is I did a little deep dive. She was in on some of those Friars roasts. I saw she roasted Frank Sinatra, a couple other guys, and she was slaying. I mean, she was just filthy and just so LaWanda Page was an American actress, comedian, and dancer whose career spanned 6 decades, crowned the Black Queen of Comedy. She began her show business career at age 15 in St. Louis, where she learned how to fire dance. That's right, fire dance.
Wow.
Swallowing fire, lighting matches and cigarettes with her fingertips, and walking over flames were part of Page's entertaining bag of tricks. She burned herself
fire dance stuff.
But think about this. So it's a 15-year-old girl, right? And you're talking, geez, 40s, 50s in the Midwest.
Can't imagine that was safe. Can't imagine
blowing
OSHA
fire
stepping in on there.
Yeah, where's OSHA?
Yeah.
I said she burned herself frequently. She told a journalist, "If I had to burn to make a living, I was willing to burn."
Oh no,
which is pretty crazy. She was billed as the Bronze Goddess of Fire, or LaWanda the Flame Goddess, in small St. Louis nightclubs. Right?
Oh no, you can't have a fire walker in a small St. Louis nightclub.
No,
that sounds like
it's a terrible
idea.
If we thought Great White was a bad idea, this is way worse. The Bronze Fire Queen in a small St. Louis club? No.
I'm not going in on that. I'm not going in.
In the asbestos era? Come on. What are you talking about?
I'm not attending that show.
All right. So it says Paige was also introduced to stand-up while touring the Chitlin circuit, where she shared the stage with Red Fox and Richard Pryor. So that's kind of where she started.
Sanford and Son. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, a phone call from Red Fox in 1972 changed her mind. She was about to leave LA and go home. She was like, enough of this, right?
Back to the firewalking.
Back to firewalking in small clubs in St. Louis. I wonder if she's a Cardinals fan. You know what I mean? I got to wonder, like...
I mean, honestly, if she's old enough, she'd be a Browns fan. Before they moved to Baltimore, they were the St. Louis Browns. She could have been throwing out first balls at the St. Louis Browns games.
On fire. So phone call for Red Fox 1972. Earlier that year, the sitcom Sanford and Son, starring Fox as Fred Sanford, premiered on NBC. This is interesting here. So, a man known for his generosity, Fox brought his childhood friend Paige to the attention of one of the producers of the show.
Oh, that's awesome. They're childhood friends? That's
Yeah.
great.
So, and this guy was apparently familiar with Paige and her act. So, Fox called her to read for the role of Esther Anderson, the sister of Fred Sanford's late wife, Elizabeth. You know, he was always having those heart attacks. At first, Paige thought Fox was playing a joke and hung up on him twice.
Yow.
But once he convinced her he was being serious, she auditioned and offered the role.
Look at her
It's
now.
interesting. She had a hard time working in the sitcom environment, coming from like comedian, fire person. And the producers told Red Fox that they had to fire her and they needed to get another actress. Red Fox said that insisted that she keep the part and threatened to walk away from the show if she was fired. That's a big deal, man.
So I guess she stayed.
She stayed. It said besides his generosity, he knew that she'd be a fantastic fit. His quote was, "You never heard of the lady, but that night, that first show of LaWanda goes on the air, they'll be dancing in the streets in every ghetto in the United States." So the producers relented, and Aunt Esther went on to become one of the most popular TV sitcom characters in the 1970s. Now, here's where the year thing comes in. 1977, same year this episode we're talking about, Love Boat, Sanford and Son was canceled.
Oh.
Damon Wilson and Red Fox left the show over unfair treatment and pay disputes with NBC. So they tried to do a spin-off called Sanford Arms with neither of those two characters, but with Aunt Esther.
And that heavy guy. Yeah, I think I remember.
Phil Wheeler but it was a flop.
Yeah,
and that's it. Also in 1977, she released a comedy album called Watch It, Sucker. So in 77, she moved away from
big year for her.
Son. Yeah, it is a big year. Big year. I mean, it was interesting. You know what's funny is because in that first episode, I can't remember his name, which is terrible. But remember the guy that was drafted by the Chargers and like died at 34.
Yeah. The senator or the congressman or whatever.
Yeah, you find these weird gems. All right, so then those are the big ones. We have Jacqueline Smith, obviously known for her role as Kelly Garrett. Charlie's Angels ran from 76 to 81. She's the only original female lead to remain with the series for its complete run. Here's a fun fact. In 1985, Smith came top of the list as the most beautiful woman in America. Let me ask you, sir, who came in second?
1985?
1985, who came in second? Most beautiful woman in America.
Vanessa Williams.
No, Linda Evans.
Yeah. I mean, that's the height of Dynasty, I guess.
Yeah, but I don't know. Okay. All right. She starred in 25. That didn't go well. That's not, that's no ringing endorsement for Linda.
Nah, that's
sorry, Linda. Hey, come on the Love Boat. You come on the Love Boat. We'll talk,
she'll be on.
She'll be there. Yeah. Well, was Dynasty ABC? I think it was.
Yeah, but I don't think that matters.
No, I see what you're saying.
I think it helps, but I don't know that these are going to only be ABC stars.
I'm just wondering, is the fact that LaWanda Page, well, no, because you're right, because the Jeffersons were on. So it's not going to prohibit. I mean, I bet the other networks wanted their people to be on these other channels.
Yeah, right? I think if you're ABC, you'd like to have at least one person that you can then have. And after the Love Boat, it's some horrible debut show with one of these people or something like that.
That makes sense. I just figured they would be likely to push them into this show if you had some, you know what I mean? Just as a way.
How many shows were on ABC in a given year? Like 12? You'd run out of people pretty fast.
That's true. Jacqueline Smith. All right. So Jacqueline Smith starred in 25 television movies, which is crazy. So other than Charlie's Angels, this episode of The Love Boat was the last TV show appearance she would make until the year 2000, when she appeared on an episode of Becker. Speaking of Ted Danson. Look at that.
There you go.
Who else we got?
Tune into the Becker podcast for that review.
Or the new Night Court podcast. We don't really.
Nope. That doesn't exist.
No. So then Dennis Cole, fun fact that you and I both realized, He met his second wife, actress Jacqueline Smith, after a 19-month courtship. The couple wed. I would say they met. I'm sorry, he was a guest star and they met on the set of Charlie's Angels. They were married
Would
from
it be cool if
78
they
to
met
91.
exactly how it played out in this show?
Well, you know what
Like if that was their real life meeting?
I was thinking they're probably getting all weird about it. Just think about it's a married couple who has to go to work and act like they're not married, but they have to it would be weird. You know what I mean? It would be this
No, it's acting.
It's super although listen.
No,
I
but
don't
just
know
in
about this
general, it's
Dennis
acting. I don't think it's that weird. They're both actors. Like it's not that weird.
You know what? I take it back. It's not weird at all. They're playing a people. Yeah, never mind. That's not a big deal. And then the last person to go through. Tova Feldshuh. Not much out there on her. She is an American actress, singer, and playwright. She's been a Broadway star for 50 years, earning 4 Tony Award nominations. Let's just make that clear. She has also received 2 Emmy Award nominations.
Now, she was big in a couple pieces of business that I'm not sure that you would have seen. She was in a lot of Law and Orders. She was one of the rare recurring defense attorneys. She would pop up every now and then. And I think she got shot in one of them.
Was she on the Standard Law and Order, or was it on when they
Standard?
did that whole
I only observe Standard. Yeah,
I don't
Orbach Standard Time. Yeah,
Jerry Orbach.
And then I'm 1,000,000% positive that you never watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, but she was the lead character's mother in that.
So. No. What is that? What is it? Crazy Ex-Girlfriend?
Rachel Bloom. It's like a musical kind of show. You'd love it.
Oh, is it as good or better than Cop Rock?
First season's excellent.
I'm
not going to expect you to watch it, but the first season is excellent.
All right, we've set the stage, Mike.
Yep.
We know who the guest stars are. We know when the episode aired. We know the synopsis. It's time to begin the deep dive of the episode.
Excellent.
So here we go. So episode sort of starts out with Jeanette Jacqueline Smith. And she's staring despondently at her husband. And let me just say right off the bat, this guy, within seconds, just gives the worst impression. He's got dead eyes. He's just a piece of garbage, this guy.
Now, did you notice that I think it was 4 or 5 times. One of them would say something. The camera would flash to the other person for a reaction.
Yeah.
Then it would flash back to the person who said something. And then it would flash back to the other person, and then there would be a line. There were these silent pauses 4 or 5 times in that storyline, and especially with that Lucas guy, the husband. Yeah. I'm thinking he was a terrible actor, and he kept forgetting that it was his turn to talk.
Well, they listed him as a co-star. I didn't list him as a co-star. That guy, there's no.
He didn't even make the portal.
No, he didn't make the portal.
Or the portholes or whatever they're called.
No. But it was just. Yeah, it was weird. It was. It's weird to see that portrayal of 2 people that don't obviously like each other, that are just not mean, but
I guess that's what they were trying to portray, right? Is this cold iciness in the marriage, but that was how they decided to do it, with literally nothing happening.
Well, nothing happening, and maybe we were supposed to get there based on the way he snarkishly points out that he has no choice basically to be a workaholic because someone's got to pay for blah blah blah.
He
blah,
also, blah. I wrote it down because he had the best line when she's like, "Are you going to walk me to the cabin?" And he's like, "I'm sure it's fine.
I'm sure it's fine.
I have to beat the traffic." And it's
Well, he's parked. That was a little much. He's parked right out front of the ship too. We know how parking works, so we know his car's right there.
And he didn't even leave because he had to go meet the spy.
When he and another thing too is the fact he's so indifferent, right? And she's saying how she doesn't care about the material stuff and all this other thing. She goes to walk. He's just completely indifferent.
Yeah.
And gives his wife a kiss on the cheek. And it's just this weird. Well, and then Dennis Kingsley emerges in the creepiest. I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm like, is this guy going to kill Jacqueline Smith? You know what I mean? Is this guy a psychopath? I don't know what's going on here. It was weird. So then he meets him and he goes back out. It was just odd.
It is a so they never really dive into like I hired you because you're the best investigator, or like there's no kind of like
No, there's no setup at all. It's just
right.
like
It's
you
just like, and they do the really clumsy like you get the information, you give it to me, I pay you, I never see you again. Like okay, cool. But then later on, when you find out his backstory, it's wild that this guy is just creeping in bushes, spying on people.
well, it's super creepy. Like my wife passed away, so like, why aren't you at home with your kids,
Right,
dude?
he's
You're
got
just going on
4
cruises,
children.
and
He
he did
is
the thing and one credit card.
he has 4 children, including twins. And he is on a
Yes.
boat for a week making time with Jacqueline Smith because somebody is paying him. It has to be an amazing amount of money. And he's like supporting the kids with this money. But it does not jive with what like you would assume that the spy would be like, I'm the best. Don't worry. I've tracked dames from here to there and all that stuff.
or somewhat inconspicuous. Like don't look like a crazy stalker. Like look like a regular guy. You know what I mean?
Like, is it possible this is this guy's first spy ever?
Very much possible.
Like he
He's
works in
desperate
the
for a
office.
job.
He works
Yeah.
in that Lucas guy's office, and
Needed some extra money. Felt
he's
bad
just
because
like,
his
"Hey,
wife passed
are you
away.
available for a week?" So,
Do you like vacations? You know,
right.
just
like boats.
but it was, and we'll get. Yeah, I don't want to. I
Yeah.
enter Maurice Marshall and his wife Stella. They board the ship, and immediately they're conveying right. You don't have to struggle to figure out what's going on.
Nope, they're doing a
years of
show.
marriage.
They are in they're in
show.
like season 4 of their sitcom already. It's just like
Oh yeah, and what really stood out to me on that last watch was the colors. So she comes in like a canary yellow, like women's business suit, and he's in this like almost a robin's egg. And I'm just like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, eh, sometimes things happen in the show that really kind of bring you back to that, like that's how people used to dress, kind of thing.
well, especially on a cruise, right? Like you can probably get away with a little bit more of a fashion forward because it's not like you're going to the grocery store and that stuff. So
Well, who wears a suit to go on a cruise?
listen, I have a lot of questions about suit fashion or cruise fashion already on this thing.
I mean, wouldn't you kind of go in like you're like dressed like you're going to the pool in a sense? Maybe classed up a little bit, but wouldn't it be
Honestly,
beachy and linens and white and
John Ritter probably dresses the most appropriately when he's getting on the boat. But unfortunately, that's the only clothes he brought.
yeah, because when he went to the pool to go talk to what's her face, he's lounging on a chair with like pants and.
But Dennis Kingston, I think one of the mornings shows up and he's dressed like Vitas Karolitis. Like he's just like he's got his, his whites on.
Oh yeah. Shorts were high back then too, so you gotta be careful.
Kingston's got to show what he's got. He's a widower.
Well, yeah, exactly. 4 kids and a credit card. So Maurice Marshall enters the boat. 23 years of marriage, and he pulls out one of his business cards, hands it to Julie, and he's known as the Sausage King.
Right. Not of any designated city or town. Yeah.
Just I mean, that's a bold.
Right. Like that. I assume that means he's got all fiefdoms. So
got a huge jurisdiction, you know. Julie sort of feigns interest. She scans a passenger list and gives them the number of their assigned suite. Here's where I noticed something. They head up, they're bickering, they're doing their thing. They're doing the, the George Jefferson and Ann Esther show. So Julie tells them where their room is, and this is crazy. So Julie says, your room, I can't remember the deck. She says it's up the stairs and aft. Did you catch that?
No. What does that mean?
I asked Missy because, she uses language that people don't use, like, devil may care, things like that. Yeah. So for this, I said, you got to listen to this because I had to listen to it a few times. And I go, it sounds like she's saying aft. And she's like, yeah, it's a nautical term for the back. So I guess she was saying up the. And again, I mean, she's from the Poconos, though.
Do they
she's from the ocean?
Yeah, classic boat. Do they just throw one like legit?
That's what I'm thinking.
Nautical term, because last week it was the thing where they put you under the ship, right? Yeah. So
yeah, it is. I was thinking that too because I was like, that was like highlighted. in the
Right.
script, like boating.
I did not catch that.
So I thought that was
good for Julie.
is interesting.
So the one interesting thing, and this is relative to them before they run up the steps, is when Jacqueline Smith leaves previous to the Jeffersons Esther's coming in, she gets on the elevator. Elevator wasn't there last week. And
Elevator
it felt
wasn't there last week.
And I'll be curious to see if the elevator's there next week. So I do wonder if they had the shot of Jacqueline Smith getting in the elevator to set up the later plot line for the other people. So because there were two new sets this week.
2 new sets. Okay, that's one.
We'll get to it.
All right. Now I'm like scanning my brain trying to figure out which. All right, so that's them. They shows them to the room. They head up the stairs. They're bickering, just really selling the point that, they're arguing.
But at the end, I love you, honey. Yeah, I love you too. And then
it's cute. Yeah. It's cute.
They're not the Lockhorns.
No, they're not the Lockhorns. Thank you. Yeah. They're not the Lockhorns. Here we go. Let's get into this storyline. Dale Reinhardt races after Joanne. Also known as the woman he hooked up with for one weekend, declared his love to, but was unceremoniously dumped so that she could move on to her next squeeze.
So that's all it was a weekend? I kind of missed the part where they were kind of explaining it.
Yeah, I went back. I had to rewind this last watch a couple times.
Really so he's really pathetic.
That's what I'm thinking. Like
they underplayed how pathetic he was then.
Well, this last watch changed my whole impression of his character, because she said on that when he's trying to get her to, come to the boat, she said that, all we had was a week at your uncle's beach house. We didn't have a relationship. That's what she's telling him. And he's like, I love you. So let's just say right now. And as we go through this, I think we're going to check boxes. He's playing a character that's out of his friggin' mind. Like complete psycho.
That makes so much more sense for the ending.
Completely.
Yep. Yep.
It all came by. All right. So Joanne's basically saying, I don't feel anything for you. They hooked up for a week, and he's,
because at first I thought, here we are again, 2 weeks in a row, a guy chasing a girl on.
That's what boat. I thought.
But it's much different than Jimmy Walker last week.
Much different. A lot of less driving for John Ritter this time too.
I will say, it's very subtle, but it's there. When she runs up the steps after, I don't know, whatever. She had some
Mercedes guy, Peter Ping or Peter, whatever his name is.
Peter Pringle.
Peter Pringle. Wow.
When she runs up the steps, he does a turn and hits the railing, and it is 100% Jack Tripper. It is just so physical, it is a Jack Tripper thing. It was absolutely perfect. Before he goes down the steps, there's just like a real small. He didn't go full Tripper in this one, but it was like there's elements. You can tell the star is in there.
I mean, look, his character he played was crazy. I think they handed him. I don't know what he thought of this thing when they were like, "Yeah, we want you to play," and we'll get more into it. So
it was almost like they didn't have any relievers, and he had to throw like 148 pitches.
Yeah, essentially. I feel like as far as comedy goes, he carried the whole episode. Essentially, like his storyline. And I say that no disrespect to Sherman Helmsley or LaWanda Page. It's just that it was such a small story. They didn't give him any room. They didn't give
those guys. That almost felt. I was going to say this. At some point, it felt like a fourth storyline fell apart. Or it wasn't doing well. And again, there really wasn't much interaction with the crew. Certainly less than last week. And again, that might be how these go. But last week was so crew heavy.
Yeah.
Like there was a crew member in almost every scene last week, except a couple of those Suzanne Summers ones.
Mm-hmm.
This week was really the opposite. They were really tacking them on. So I almost wonder if there was a storyline that fell out, or it's what we're talking about, which is John Ritter was the big star kind of out of nowhere, and they loaded him up.
I mean, maybe it was intentional. I mean, he was, Three's Company is just starting. You know what I mean? I wonder if it's just, hey, we're going to pump this guy up. I mean, John Ritter was John Ritter. He was great. All right, so he's professing his love for a woman he basically hooked up with, and she's basically like, "You're crazy, dude.
Yeah,
like, we just hooked up. I don't love you. Like, you don't love me.
I barely know your name.
I don't even know you. I'm trying to hook up with the dude because he has a Mercedes. Like,
Right.
just
And he's
buy.
beautiful.
And he is beautiful.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. I look like he had some of those Ferrari sunglasses on. Remember those?
Oh, that
And they
guy,
would fold up.
that guy's up to some trouble.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You know what's funny too is I don't see any smoking on the show. And I figured for the 70s I'd see a little more.
Well, last week they were smoking when Meredith Baxter tried to light that porno mag on fire.
Okay.
But that could have been
That's
literally for that. So, yeah.
Okay. Just wondering. Just something to watch because it's the 70s, you know. It was so much in the culture. I just thought
you're outside. Like if you're gonna smoke.
Now's the time. I thought Dennis was going to smoke, but he pulled out a piece of gum, you know, at the end after or the beginning when the guy's saying, "Hey, watch my wife," or whatever. He grabbed something. I thought he was going to pull out a smoke.
I thought he was going to pull out a piece,
a knife or something. Lunatic.
I'll watch her.
So Joanne goes up the stairs. You know, she's, you know, Dale, get out of here. You're crazy. So she leaves the lobby. Dale goes over to the front desk. And he goes over to Gopher saying, you know, he desperately needs to book a ticket. Gopher's like, no can do. I think that's his no can do was the actual quote. Told him it was booked. He said, can you double check to see if there was a cancellation? Good news. And he goes, what? Somebody died. Ha ha ha. And he says there's a room, but he can't give it to him because it's for a shared accommodation with a woman. Here we go. Enter comedy.
So the logistical nightmare that when anybody asks you anything like that without computers is got to be insane. Like
paper.
He's going through paper to see who canceled, if anybody canceled, what room is available. Every time they ask Julie about somebody's room and stuff, she's got to go back, and you can just imagine she's like just pouring through pages of notes. Probably
all
not.
She does is look up room numbers. That's all she does in this show.
It's awful. Like
I haven't seen her.
They should have invented privacy acts just to avoid that 30 years earlier.
Well, the other thing too is I think, you know, speaking of Julie, like when she comes on the boat, you know, I'm here to make sure you have a great time on the cruise. What does she do to make sure people have a great time on the cruise? Like, I always thought that role would be more like an events leader or organizer. But
last week, I felt like we figured out she ended up doing a couple of things. She booked the captain's dinner. She was helping out buy all those porno mags. So there were a couple of things. She didn't have much to do today. In fact, as we get to it, I think she's actually a villain in this scene because, long story short, John Ritter realizes that there's, I guess it's some sort of like show, like club show or something like that, where all these people show up in costume, and he's going to steal someone's luggage, pretend he's a woman, buy the available ticket, get on the boat. So this is the great plan, which again, as we established last week, there's no security on this boat. You can just stow it away.
Case in point. So
free.
The other thing is, okay, so he's going, okay, I've got this scheme. I need to dress like a woman. Okay, so he sees this woman and these group of guys, right, walking in. She's got blonde hair, and they all have hats. So when he grabbed the box, who would think that that's a wig box? I just assumed it was a hat box. Like,
see, I don't even know that it was a wig box. I think he just grabbed a suitcase of a tall woman. Oh, you think he got the wig?
Yeah. Because remember, there was that blonde country singer.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, but I was like, do they make boxes for wigs? So it's like he had that, and then he went and got the other. He goes up.
It's a lot. It's a lot of things, and this is where Julie's a villain in this. She's standing there talking to all those women, looking directly at John Ritter.
The whole thing's a work.
Doing this, and then stealing a bag. Like, come on, Julie.
She's oblivious. She's so concerned about giving up people's room numbers. Yeah. That she's so concerned about not your privacy.
Boat guests are clearly not interesting. They were not involved in any of the plots.
None.
And so you're not missing anything.
So many. All we care about are these, 6 people essentially on the boat. It's pretty crazy.
and that other couple that we'll get to.
All right. So there is something I caught. Again, it was on the 4th watch. So we're at the point now where Dale is in the men's room, okay? He's about to emerge, and then there is a random drunk person in the bathroom. already. Like the cruise
Well,
hasn't. I mean,
do you pregame? Do you pregame a cruise?
I
Maybe.
think that guy does. That guy obviously
I mean,
pregame
that guy could
cruise.
have been drunk and just wandered into the boat.
It's just well, apparently anybody can wander on
Right.
the boat because no one
Again,
has any memory like
the
of
only
anything.
the only people who are worried about security are the people who want to stay on the boat for free.
JJ,
But
like,
when that drunk person is involved, that leads us to our next set, the hallway set.
oh, good
There were
call,
no
good
hallways last
call.
week, and we're
Okay,
in the
I forgot about
hallway.
that.
We're in the hallway most of this
You're
episode.
right. It's the same hallway every single
Exactly.
time. You just throw a do not disturb over that one. You put a
Yep.
linen thing over the
But they got, because there's the hallway to the elevator, there's the hallway to
right.
the linen closet, there's the hallway to the do not disturb. There's hallway everywhere.
Still no like what is it called? What do you steer the boat? Still no
Main deck.
main deck. Is there a
We
name
really
for
need
that?
to get a boat person on here.
Wheelhouse.
Well,
It
they
is on
did show the captain
Deadliest
in
Catch.
action though later on.
Uh, yes, they did. And his short jacket made an appearance, which I love the short jacket. I'm going to dinner. Give me my short jacket.
Lot of hatless Stubing this week.
A lot of hatless Stubing.
Not sure if that was
point.
a choice or not, but a lot more than last week.
And you know what's funny is I thought he came across very differently, like a completely different
freaking
character.
Creep.
It was
he
weird.
Was worse than Doc this week.
Yeah, he was worse than Doc.
Doc's bad too.
Yeah, it was.
But Stubing's worse.
But it wasn't like, all right, so Dale heads back to where Gopher is, which Gopher does not recognize this as John Ritter, which is just amazing. But we're gonna
that's bosom buddy rules, though. I mean, that's yeah.
So and it's funny, you know who Dale Riley looks like? Oh, I really hope you've seen this. I couldn't get out of my head. Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
Chicken Lady. The one that's always ordering gigolos. They say, would you, can I have some eggs? And she's like, right out of my body.
I think it's safe to say that 70s comedy drag was not exactly going for accuracy.
No,
so.
it just everything screamed Chicken Lady from Kids in the Hall.
And again, it kind of lends to your theory as we get to it that both those people involved in that storyline are absolutely insane, because there's no way that Susan doesn't pick up on the fact that these are the same people later on. So
it's funny. There's another mismatch in this, right? So when this is going on after the check-in, which we agree, I don't know how this guy ever went on to be a congressman if he can't distinguish between John Ritter and Dale Riley. Anyway, Doc sees the redhead, Dale Riley, says the words, "Be still, my foolish heart."
Yeah.
Which is interesting because later on in the episode, Isaac was like, "Oh, I can hook you up with that tall redhead," and he says, "No, I'll wait till the last night of the
playing hard to get."
Yeah. So little mixed signals for Doc there.
Well, but the other thing is too, it's like there's at least two people on this staff that are going gaga over a man in a wig.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's a lot of people on that boat, guys. You creeps! Look around.
No kidding. Like. Wow. Okay. But again, remember something we touched on last week, right? Was the fact that like Captain Stubing was this captain, right? And he chose the sea right over his wife. But I don't know. I feel like they undercut his character a little bit in this episode because I
think that
I didn't like that.
Again, I think this will be something where the next couple episodes will really dictate if this was a plot device or if this is how they're going, because it's like, that first episode could just fall prey to it's a pilot. We need to show why the crew loves them and blah, blah, blah. But it was abrupt.
It's really
abrupt to go from what almost felt like an actual dramatic plot last week to like Benny Hill sketch. It was just like...
Just so overacted. You know what I mean? And it's funny is he reminded me more of his character from Mary Tyler Moore. Even in the way he was talking, you know what I mean? Like he didn't even sound like Captain Stubing.
No, it was really weird. It was odd, and I'll be curious. They can't keep up that pace. He can't be a hornball and Doc's a hornball.
Like we got 261 more to go.
Yeah,
what's he going to be then?
They can't both be hornballs like that. So
I'll tell you what. You know what happened now? That dude would not be the captain of that ship now, doing all that.
He'd be overboard.
Whew. All right. So he. Okay, as the ship sets sail, the passengers converge on the deck.
Much less much
Jeanette's,
less of a crowd than the first.
yeah, I did notice
time.
that too.
People didn't
Different
care
shot.
if these guys were shipping off. They did not care.
You could
So
try. But it was weird because so Jeanette's staring sadly into space, and ever creepy Dennis is just
awesome spy right behind
dead
her.
eyeing her.
Like, what do you think she's doing on the deck, waving goodbye?
Like, wouldn't you feel someone staring at you that hard? You know, you get that weird feeling if like
giant, tall, blonde guy. Yes, you would notice him.
The only two people not throwing confetti.
Yeah.
All right. So She-Dale is what they refer to her in this. She-Dale, we're going to call her Dale Riley just to be respectful.
Yeah. Yep.
Dale Riley locates the cabin, finds a woman inside sobbing. He asks what's going on. She introduced herself as Susan Riley, explains that she's supposed to be on her honeymoon, but her husband-to-be ran off with another woman just before the wedding. In fact, it was the woman fitting him for the tuxedo.
That is,
so he never even
not
showed
even
up.
fitting him at that point. He was just picking it up. It's probably like the person at the register.
Like Jerry wasn't a good guy.
Also, now I bought my suit for the wedding, so maybe it's different. But are you picking that thing up same day? Like, that's a lot of pressure.
You talk about, put it all on red 16. You know what I mean? Like,
it's just like things happen outside of infidelity. Like,
he didn't have a tuxedo.
No.
She's a dummy. Like, she's buying everything. She's just, and who gets like, your husband leaves you before they're married? Who then goes on the honeymoon?
Yeah, they at least threw in a line later on where she realized how crazy that was, but they never gave a good reason.
And this is my continuing theory about Dale and Susan. Dale and Susan are both batshit crazy.
Yes.
Like,
yes,
absolutely
they're absolute
psycho.
psychopaths.
Yes.
100%.
Explains what's going on. Dale tells her the man's clearly an idiot and says they have something in common because he was also jilted. And then she starts to slip out of like her PJs, or I don't know what you call that. And now she's taking a shower.
And it's like, I again, it's the 70s. I know that he's a man dressing up, so it's like played for comedy. But like, even if that's just two women, I don't know. Go in the bathroom.
I don't.
Like,
I met you 5 minutes ago. Like, you're crazy. Oh, okay. All right. So we'll skip ahead. The next scene is after dinner. Jeanette is enjoying a glass of wine while Dennis is freaking creepily watching her. By the way, later in that scene, Isaac says to him, pardon me, if you keep sipping that drink like that, I'll have you arrested for loitering.
Yep. Oh, yeah. He's just nursing one drink.
Wow.
Which I guess he's on the clock, and so he's trying to stay sharp. But we also get introduced to Carl and Linda, who are other ancillary characters. Again, a lot of co-stars in this one. And they get a lot of lines for plot device.
They really did.
They're very annoying.
I thought they were annoying. I didn't think they served any purpose.
Well, they just literally were moving that storyline along. That's all they were doing. They were just like exposition. They were very annoying. But then it also brought up my favorite scene in there, which is so Jacqueline Smith's sitting there nursing her drink or whatever herself, and this guy comes over, real nice, asks her to dance,
polite,
is not a creep, which on this boat is like you're an 8 just by not being a creep.
Wouldn't it be weird for a single guy to go on a cruise? That's not some like hookup cruise, or is that not a weird thing?
I mean, in real life, I would think so.
In real life.
But we're just not. We need to get cruise people on this thing because
we don't know anything about cruises,
and I don't know if cruises today are like cruises in the 70s. I would definitely not go on a cruise anyway, let alone by myself. If I was single, but maybe single looking to mingle. But this guy gets turned down very nicely. She's like, "I'm going to meet. I'm sorry, I'm waiting for somebody." And he's like, "Oh, lucky guy," and he goes about his day.
Nice thing to say.
And then she gets up and leaves, and Isaac's like, hey, I overheard you saying that you were meeting somebody. And she's like, I just didn't want to hurt his feelings. You know what hurts the guy's feelings is you got up 30 seconds after you told him you were waiting for somebody. Like, at least wait 5 minutes or wait till he's not looking. Like, that could not be more. The only thing you could have done that would have been worse is if you had just turned around and said, man, I'm glad I lied to that guy. Like, it would have been just.
Or not with you, or just yelling at. Like, he hadn't even, that's funny.
Jacqueline,
I didn't even think about that.
Jacqueline,
That's really funny.
Get it. you are absolutely the most attractive woman on this boat. There's no question. Like,
Yeah.
yes,
We know who was number
get
2 in
it.
85. You know what I mean?
But
So
don't say that you're trying not to hurt this guy's feelings and then immediately hurt this guy's feelings. Come on.
well, the other thing too, I think that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that, like the quick turn. The thing that caught me was Isaac is just a busybody, man.
Yeah.
Like it's weird how I felt it was weird that she had a sense of familiarity in the way that she was talking to him, like, "Oh, Isaac," like that kind of thing. And I'm like, "You,
I think they're going for like,
I'm everyone's buddy," like
and
that
it's the
kind of thing.
bartender and
I get
everything,
it.
but it's like
weird.
I get the impression he's going to be like the Jiminy Cricket of this show. But you're right. It is like everybody's like, "Oh, Isaac, you wise old
Oh,
sage,
you son of a bitch!"
who
Yeah,
poured me 2 drinks in the 2 hours I've been on this boat. So you're my best friend now
yeah. I don't.
and main confidant." Like, it's weird.
Yeah, I
It
don't.
would be like having a real great rapport with like the guy at Applebee's who poured your 23-ounce beer. Like, it's
It is weird. Yeah, it is odd. It's not a very personal experience. And the thing is, too, and this is something I'm going to look out for. And I want to see him like in the act of like mixing a drink. Like sometimes they'll have him doing this, but
well, they pre-made that Bloody Mary, but that
Right.
makes sense because it's Bloody Mary,
right.
so that they take a while to make.
I want to see him crack the thing and pour the thing. I don't think we'll
Little
ever see
cocktail
it.
action.
Just something, some kind of pour in action. I don't mean to bury Isaac, but it's just like,
No,
it's
I
funny
am curious because I feel like he's had the most limited stuff to do on the first 2 episodes. Now it's only been 2 episodes.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's funny. They haven't done much with him.
No,
And Gopher's been very much on the surface. He's been comedy relief, basically.
Gopher had a lot more to do the first episode, but still.
Yeah, that is true. Next morning, Dale changes back into his normal clothes, which was odd to me because he wasn't even supposed to be on the ship, right? Wouldn't somebody notice, like, who are you and what room you're? But they just don't. It's just a free for all on the Love Boat.
It's a lot of people on the boat, like that. Without knowing anything about cruises, that's a gigantic boat. I feel like you're hiding in plain sight. We've established there's no identification needed to get on these boats.
Right.
I think that makes sense. It's actually more odd. It's actually more odd that the captain pretends that he thinks he's going to know everybody on the ship. There's got to be 1,000 people on these cruises.
He's full of it. Well, it's interesting too because I bet now there's like for access, there's probably like wristbands. There's all sorts of crap now.
Yeah, of course.
I just wonder
today would be terrible.
It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be. Well, I'll tell you what, Dale wouldn't be on it. You know what I mean?
No.
JJ wouldn't have been on it. So,
nope.
Here's the part where he goes up to Julie and basically he asks, he wants to get the cabin number of his quote unquote ex-girlfriend. And sure enough, she just gives him the number, which is just crazy. Oh, sure, you can have here non-guest. You can have this guest
here, as we later established, dangerous non-guest.
Well, he could have gone in there and killed that dude.
Absolutely.
So he goes in there, sees that do not disturb. So now everything's going nuts now. So now enter Jeanette playing solitaire with Doc giving her help she didn't really want. Again, Doc being just as creepy as he possibly could be.
My note here is Doc is the worst. But then, so we're introduced briefly to Greta Wilkes, who is going to get a tour of the ship. You know who they never found the body of? Greta Wilkes.
Doc was a psychopath. Yeah. Doc was actually a serial killer, they reveal in episode 263. Yeah, no kidding. It's always like these random, Paula, let me go give you a...
Yeah, but again, this is why you don't have to go after Jack Tripper in a wig, Doc.
Right. He's taking her back to the office. We know where he keeps his pills in his file cabinet. He's just doing whatever. He's Doc, but it's not Wednesday because he'd be playing golf. Doc heads off with her, leaves for the card game. And there we go. There's Dennis again. Ever-present Dennis notices all this from a seat at the end of the bar and stares. I wrote with a look of heightened puzzlement.
Is this when
I don't even know what that means.
The piece of paper at the end? Like,
yes. Yeah. And I'm like, what's going on here, bro?
He's the worst spy.
can we? I just want to say, so when I was looking to see what he was involved in, right? He was in a lot of different TV shows, right? Not
I think
like
he ended up
Police
in that rotation like
Story.
everybody did, where you're on like a Mannix and then you're on a Rockford Files and then,
But I think like much like that, I wish the senator or the congressman from the first one, the guy we talked about, they both have the same sort of look, like that Bronsonish sort
but
of rugged look. They loved
that's
it.
a very late 70s, early 80s look though. I
Yeah.
think.
Like everyone looks like Billy Jack. You know what I mean? Like it's just
It's just a very like California look.
yeah, with the blonde
Which does
hair
make
too.
sense because that's where they're at, right?
I mean, they are in Los Angeles, but that was
Yeah.
such a thing. You know what I mean? These rugged. It's just interesting.
It's by the way, it's pronounced. If you caught this later, it's pronounced Los Angeles.
Oh,
He says Los Angeles later.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
And I caught it at the very end. I think it's when he has to fly back to talk to the husband.
To Los Angeles.
He's like, I have to go. I have to go back to Los Angeles.
Isn't he?
He's
exotic?
Hammered on all. He's hammered on
Oh
all.
yeah, just slurring. He's hanging out with that guy in the bathroom that saw Dale. So here we go. Captain Steubing. Let the creepiness begin. Here it starts. Captain Steubing notices Dale. Now this is Dale. Gets confusing.
Lady
I don't
Dale.
want to.
It's Lady
Dale. Dale
It's
Riley. Lady Dale. Let's say Lady Dale. Thank you. Captain Steubing notices Lady Dale exiting the linen closet, decked out. Good old red polka dot dress and giant red wig, like the chicken lady in Kids in the Home. So he asked, basically he's like, hey, he questions her, why are you in a linen closet? She says she swore the sign says ladies room.
Which I can see, linen ladies.
And apparently he's like, it's reasonable. You know what I mean?
I mean,
and looks
everybody's sauced
charmed
on these damn boats anyway. That's not crazy.
They really are. I mean, maybe right off Steubing's behavior is just being hammered for this episode because it's easier. It makes that there's some logic in that.
He should really be. He should be arrested for what he does later in this show.
Oh yeah. It's
yeah.
You know, it'd be funny. I wonder, like, if he was still alive, and somebody was like,
canceled?
"Oh, not canceled," but I wonder if I don't think anybody would hold Captain Steubing to the fire, but I think it would be interesting to say.
What if they did? What if that was like a big deal?
Cancel the Steubs, Okay, we're back to the Sausage King. Maurice, Stella get ready for dinner. Before they leave the room, he asks Stella to put this package of sausages in her purse because he wants to bring it to dinner for the captain. Keep in mind, captain dinner at captain at dinner, short jacket.
Yep, just short jacket. Usually a shorter stay. He's there like
way stay. He doesn't. I gotta go. He shows up. He doesn't even sit. And he's like, I gotta go.
So these sausages, he doesn't have them in a freezer or anything. I was thinking
that too. Like what?
So that's why they're so pungent the whole time. But what's he gonna do? They're probably bad.
You're gonna kill somebody, sir.
Keep if you don't put it on in a fridge or something.
Unless it's dried. That's the only thing I was thinking. I was like, yeah, you can't. It's pork. It's raw pork.
You don't have. You're the king. You're the king of sausages. You don't have some sort of package that you can deliver this at,
unless they're cooked.
Maybe
he's the king of cooked sausage.
What's the meat? What's the meat that you buy at the mall? There was always those meat sets that you would give for gifts and stuff like Hickory Farm.
Oh, Hickory Farm summer sausage.
You don't have the Hickory Farms.
Maybe it's summer sausage. You didn't have to refrigerate that stuff, or did you?
You're probably right though. He's the king of sausage.
He's the king of cooked sausage. You know what I mean?
Not transportation. That's a different king. That's a.
I want to go back and read that business card very carefully now. Does it say cooked? Because if not, we've got some food issues on this boat. Being the vice
president of a company, there's 12 of them. It's just
no wonder food poisoning is rampant on cruises. I blame the sausage king.
Seriously.
So they leave the room. She puts the sausages in the purse. They run into Gopher getting into the elevator. And he says, oh, that smells wonderful. What are you wearing? And she says, Chanel No. 5. And he says, oh, I thought I smelled sausage.
Wah, wah. Chanel No. 5, this week's subtle sponsorship. It gets mentioned a few times.
Product placement. Yeah. Ice cold tab.
Yeah.
So they get in the elevator, and this is the jumping off point for this giant argument that they're going to have. They're getting so mad at each other. She's saying she wants to go back to the room. He's saying he wants to meet the captain. They're hitting the up and down arrow. Finally, and I thought it was a very long scene. They must have shown 3, like
but there was a lot
5
of that.
clips
It
of
makes me think
gears.
they were padding this out because there were a lot of things like that. You did
They
not
were clock
need
watching, dude.
17 shots of that elevator
Of the same
bank,
thing, like,
and then that dramatic explosion. So,
yeah, that was no, that was odd. So effectively traps the two of them inside, and they get back to that a little later. So now we're back to Dennis. What was that couple's name? He's having dinner with that couple you mentioned.
it was Carl and Linda Day.
Carl and Linda Day. Carl, I will say, amazing set of teeth on Carl.
I was just gonna say he's got some chompers. Yeah,
like,
yeah. He
good
kind
for
of
you,
looks
sir.
like he kind of looks like a poor man's Gary Collins, the guy who used to host Real People.
Oh, I remember Gary Collins.
Yeah, he had that look. But again, everybody looked like that. So
he had a little bit of a Dick Van Dyke thing to him too, and I think that maybe that's the teeth, or maybe it's just
had to be the teeth.
So he's having dinner. They inform him that they've gotten to know a nice single gal at the pool today, and they've invited her to join them.
Of course they did, because they talk to everybody. They're very like pushy.
I thought they were a little weird. Like I was getting a little weird. Like
that's one of the things I don't want to be on a cruise for.
Dude.
It's like people like thinking that it's like, oh, I definitely want to talk to you. No.
Oh yeah, we're sharing an experience. Therefore, like with this shared experience, we're bonding. And no.
Because this worked out for Dennis. It doesn't work out for everybody.
No.
So.
Well, I get, and I wonder too. Like, let's just say cruises in general. Do people go on cruise? Like, if number one, I wouldn't go on a cruise. Let's just hypothetically say me and the lovely Mrs. Taylor went on a cruise. Okay. I wouldn't go on the cruise and think, oh, this will be a great way to meet other people. Like I'm not, if I went, I'm going to chill out.
That's the thing people like though. There are people that like keep in touch with people that.
I don't even talk to people on land. You know what I mean? Don't put me on water.
I think it's the whole thing where there's nowhere else to go. So it's like.
Fair enough. Well, we've been in that situation before on water.
Exactly. So it's a bad spot.
It is a bad spot. So single gal turns out to be Jeanette. Politely greets Dennis. He pours her a glass of wine. And she mentioned something about nice year. I caught this comment about the wine.
But he offers her wine, turns and pours it, and she says it. Like all within, there's no way she saw what year that wine was.
Right. I was like, that was a weird, I don't know what.
The one thing that Dennis said when they were, getting ready to tell him, it was like, oh, we have this lady coming or whatever. He says, better warn her to be careful. This stretch runner is about to hit his stride.
Yeah. What is that even?
Dennis Kingston goes from sucky spy to like ladies man in one segment.
What is going? Then I'm like, is he just trying to? Let's see. They know what it is. He's trying to come across that way, right? To these people, right? So then there's that one, but then he's doing this other thing, like he's buying literature in stores, but come on, he's a round peg trying to fit.
International spy is an enigma.
He's just he doesn't even he's just, everything about him is fluid. He doesn't know anything. He's just like, I could be anything or nothing.
Hey, I could leave everything in 30 seconds, including my 4 children without a mother.
Well, another thing is weird too, is would you really bring that up the first night you meet somebody? Not right, the 4 kid part, but like
so we're getting
my wife died.
So
let's just
they go out and at the little pool area, which I guess is we saw it last week, but
we saw the other angle.
That's going to be more of a set, I guess. This little like almost like a fountain or
just
something.
A little
like that.
circle. Yeah.
So they're kind of exchanging stories, and she's talking about how, my husband's busy, and then he's like, he's a fool, which is, funny because of course he knows.
He's white knighting her too.
100%. So then he talks about his 4 kids, including twins that were just born. They're 4. And then he's like, oh, and then Jacqueline Smith's like, oh, is that your wife? Which was like a leading question. That's like, oh, so where's your boyfriend? Like, it's that move. And he's like, no, she died. And then he says, we were pretty close. Like, no shit. It's your dead wife that you had 4 kids with. Oh, I was pretty fond of her.
Again,
what a
he's
weird
just
thing to
hedging his
say.
bets. Like, I was in love, but I could probably be more in love
I could get
someday.
over
Like,
it pretty
he's what a
fast.
scumbag. You know, hold on a second. So you have I have one 4-year-old, one 5-year-old. There's no way. So, like, say I was a widower and I have 4 kids. I have 2. There's no logistics there. Like, instead, like, why didn't she say, well, who's watching the kids while you're away? You know,
The only
oh,
thing I
my
can
sister or
guess,
something. There's no explanation. It's
I would
just,
be curious to see what his cover story would have been. I think the actual story is this Lucas guy must be paying him a fortune.
oh,
to
yeah.
do
And
this
paying his way on a
body.
cruise. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. So I think the job is probably worth it, but the backstory that he would have had to come up with, I do not understand.
No, I don't either. And then again, I wonder what would qualify him. Well, I guess maybe, like you said, maybe he worked in that office. The
I
guy
think
knew
he
his
just
wife died. He
drowned.
threw him
You
a
think this
bone.
Lucas guy has like, top flight connections? He just seems like an idiot.
Yeah, but how
I'm
dumb
actually
would
way
it?
more curious to see how he got Jacqueline Smith. What's that backstory?
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing, though. So say you're the husband of Jacqueline Smith in this situation. Are you really hiring a ruggedly handsome man in the late 70s to like watch? To me,
Yeah.
if that guy's like that, then I'm hiring that drunk guy or like somebody that's not as attractive. You know what I mean? Like, to me, if
Yeah,
he
and
has that worry, it's like, wait,
the only thing I thought, and again, I think it's probably too complicated for a Love Boat plot, but I wondered if he was like going to do like an entrapment situation, because clearly this Lucas guy must have
oh,
money, and I think the thought is he's going to get the goods on her so he can get a divorce and not lose his money.
a little blackmail working
That's
for it.
kind of what I thought they were going for, but they didn't make it like overt. But that was my story in my head. So.
Yeah, because that guy didn't seem to give 2 craps about his wife. Like, he was
No,
just
even
like,
at the end,
go
he's
ahead.
just like, all right, I'll see you
All
later.
right, whatever.
You're like a
Whatever.
9-second pause. The thing I didn't understand about Kingston is he gets her to go for one dance. And then at some point he's
Oh, I
like, it's
need
11
more.
It's 11 dances.
Who
But
picks
come on,
11
dude,
more?
Close the deal, dude. 11 dances? No, if you can't close after 11.
Yeah, but he knew. But then again, see, that's why it's such a scumbag move. He knows she's married, right? She knows, like, it's super scumbag move. Like, why would she ever talk to him again when she finds, we'll get to that part. But I'm just saying, like,
It's love, man. It's the
but
love
it's a
boat.
lie. It's a lie. It's not the
lie.
lie
It's
boat.
not the lie. It's not the lie.
That's why he had to fly back to Los Angeles. All right. Julie informs Captain Steubing that a bickering couple is trapped in the elevator. Again, King of Sausage and his wife. And he says, why are you telling me this? Call the elevator repairman. I'm like, aren't you the okay, Captain? That's what I'm saying. It was a lot of weird things unbecoming of a captain status in this episode. It was weird.
Yeah. It's and again, it's like they have a like a radio. We know they have a radio, right? Why does he have to get? And why is Julie taking again? Very short.
Julie's everywhere.
Very short-staffed boat.
After dinner, Dennis strolls around the deck with Jeanette. Throws her. Okay, so shows her the photos. We've kind of covered that. Mrs. Terribly. They used to do everything together. Blah, 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 blah. In contrast, the whole very foolish comment. He says, swiftly change the subject. Okay, they go on. They hit the dance floor. Okay. Susan. We're back to Susan and Dale. Susan is blubbering again about being jilted by Jerry. And Lady Dale assures her she'll soon find someone else and gives her a comforting hug before asking her why she appears to be naked under the sheets. Again, Susan's a bit of an exhibitionist, apparently.
Yeah.
She
made a good point, though. She was like, I thought I was going to be on my honeymoon. But
there you go.
But then,
he moans hornily. It's a little odd.
I get that honeymoons were different in the old days, and you would literally like go from the wedding ceremony onto the plane or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's what happened, and she just packed very lightly because she thought she was going to have like a post-wedding thing. I get that.
I see where you're going.
But it's like
makes it crazier.
Pack something or don't take that next flight. Like if you're definitely going to take the cruise, maybe stop at the house first.
Well, and if she's such like, if she's as, what's the word?
Nuts.
If she's as promiscuous as she appears in this episode, right?
But I don't know that she is until she put up with a lot of crap from Jerry. I don't know that she is promiscuous until she realizes
Well, gee, she did say to Dale or to Lady Dale that when after they got out of the water. Well, you know what? Let me jump ahead a little bit
Yeah.
on that. That there
Yeah.
was a weird. All right. So she's blubbering again. Lady Dale moans, and then he's probably going to need a cold shower. Wah, wah, wah. Maurice and Stella still in the elevator bickering. She tries to give him a boost. He tries to give her a
Yeah, that
boost.
was like just weird
I didn't
prop
get it.
comedy. That
I
was just
didn't.
like, yeah.
They didn't even struggle enough for it to be funny.
Well, it was just
And she's like, "You're standing on my finger." I'm like, "Yeah, you're giving him a boost. That's what the whole thing is."
it's almost like they had one set, they had these guys for like an hour. Most of their Sherman Hemsley, a massive star,
Yeah.
is just doing this little bit in a bottle episode, basically in this elevator. It's weird.
It is weird. Ironically, I think I failed to mention in the beginning. He goes on to be in 2 more episodes of The Love Boat later on.
Different
a
characters, I would
two-parter,
assume.
different character, but a
Yeah.
two-parter. I thought that was interesting. All right, so there's still stuff. I didn't love their storyline. So, Captain Stubing, they realize Captain Stubing repairmen are standing there. They've got the elevator fixed. They finally arrive. And they hit the closed elevator door again. And then,
Well, they I will say this. They at least, that was consistent. I didn't particularly think much of this because I don't think they thought much of that storyline, but it was consistent. They were very much like, we fight and then we make up, and then,
it was, but like you said, I mean, Sherman Hemsley, you know what I mean? I feel like there was a lot more room there, but yeah, I wonder what happened. I wonder if it was like, we need a story, because it wasn't a very like complex story,
Do they get a refund? They never mention it. Do you get a refund if you're stuck in the elevator for hours? It was their fault.
Look, man, if you are the cooked sausage king, you got enough. You got stuck in an elevator money. You know what I mean?
God.
Because if I remember, they said they were on the Aloha deck. I would love to see a map of the Love Boat just to get some
of the boat,
so I can get like where. So I think they were like
get some blueprints of that boat.
Get like a 3D printed model, like we're gonna do this life size. You know what I mean?
I mean, there's got to be more than one elevator, I would assume, because the first elevator was in the stairwell, and if they're in the aft part of the boat,
then maybe that's where you think if that's where like the high rollers are, then maybe high roller equals convenience.
Do you want to be in the back of the boat? Is that better?
I don't know statistically what's safer. Remember, it was like on planes, it's good to be in the back. I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Unless you're one of those lost tailies, they didn't go well for them.
They should have done like a shipwrecked episode. Like the Love Boat's going down, like just end it that way.
It feels like, when they were getting close to cancellation, that's going to happen.
Just jump the giant shark. Like we're just tune in.
Literally jumping a shark, yeah.
Dennis, next scene, Dennis is exiting the gift shop. It shows Janet the Hemingway book he just bought, says it's his favorite and gives it to her as a gift. She squeals, "Ooh, I love a movable feast," and thanks him for the sweet gesture. Okay, so now
that's the same bookstore as last week that was selling 10 porno mags. So you can really,
it's a wide spread of literature there.
Anything at that newsstand.
Anything, but they only keep like 12 copies of each thing. Which, that's great on a boat that holds thousands. You know what I mean? So we have 5 Time magazines. Dale covertly spies on Joanne as she suns herself on a lounger beside her new boyfriend. When he excuses himself, Dale rushes over. It is street clothes, this is where like there's that not flaw in the thing, but like this is where I think he would stick out,
Yeah, but yeah, you're probably right.
But maybe not. I don't know. Dale rushes over. He professes his love to her again and pleads with her. And she's just like so annoyed, saying she doesn't love him. She never loved him. And that she permanently just wants him to get lost so she can focus on this new guy and his Mercedes.
Peter Pringle.
Which again is just crazy. This guy went on a boat to stalk this girl who clearly said, "I don't love you." Like it was a hookup.
I went on a boat, paid for a ticket, which I'm assuming this is not a cheap boat based on the people.
Well, you got to share a room though. I don't know if that
committed a crime, dressed up like a woman.
Yeah.
Basically could very well, if he gets caught, could probably be arrested for being in that room.
Well, he was a stowaway.
I mean, well, no, he bought
looking at it. I mean,
yeah.
So basically, Janet and Dennis continue to enjoy each other's company by playing a wholesome game of backgammon. Now let's say what screams 70s like backgammon?
Completely unnecessary
Yeah,
scene.
I didn't understand that. And they're like,
There
oh,
was
you
no
owe me
reason for this entire
$3.80.
just that was time fill. A lot
They
of
were
time
in
fill.
love with that storyline. Like this
Yeah.
whole thing was that storyline. Like
Yep.
it was just okay, here we go. Dale's about to end it all by leaping overboard. When he notices that Susan's about to do the same thing, he rushes over to where she's about to jump and tells her that no guy is worth committing suicide for. And Susan quickly mulls it over and decides, yeah, I think you're right, and completely abandons the idea of suicide. As Dale tries to help her climb back over the railing, he loses his grip and somehow, no,
Like
I wrote
idiots.
this wrong.
Like they fall like idiots off the side of the boat.
Well, keep
Like
in mind in that first scene when he's explaining, like, look, you could kill yourself falling off a thing, and they show it, that boat's moving, and then when
yeah,
they jump, the boat is completely still.
yeah.
So, haha, realism. So they, and the other thing too is, I immediately thought, okay, say that happened, so life goes on when you get back in the boat. All these
That's what I was
alarms
gonna
go off
say.
in boats,
So
like,
if there's ever going to be a scene where the ship's doctor should be involved, it's these people just fell off a boat and then they go back and he's not checking them for concussions or anything. They gave him a towel or a blanket and some cocoa. And this was what they did. This is all Doc is doing.
Oh, it's fun. Well, keep in mind, episode 1, remember, the captain was stressed out because his ex-wife, the whole thing, and Doc gave him like pills to deal with his anxiety.
Give these people pills at least.
He's not jumping off the
He's
boat.
not even doing that.
Which, again, right, back to the whole point about Susan and Dale in the storyline, they're both crazy. So now we have two potential suicide attempts, cross-dressing, falling in love with somebody, some weird with Susan and her husband. It's just okay. Whew. Okay. So Dale and Susan are back in her cabin. Now this is Guy Dale. Right? Not Lady Dale. Are in her cabin wrapped up in blankets and drink and laugh about their near-death experience. Maybe they didn't laugh about it, but it was just odd.
They were over it quicker than I would.
Very over it. Like, wouldn't it be upsetting? Like, oh my God.
That's
very, very weird.
That's not like they fell into a pool.
No, that
fell into the ocean
pool.
off a
boat.
You
fell into the ocean off a boat. Dale invites her to have dinner with him this evening. She said she promised her cabin mate, Lady Dale, she'd dine with her, then adds that she feels obligated to hang out with her because of how unsightly how non-attractive she is, which is just kind of, it made me giggle. I don't know why, it just kind of made me laugh. Dale understands, suggests they meet up at the nightclub after dinner at 9 p.m.
It's kind of crawling here at the end, don't you think? Like, it was like,
well, this next scene was just not enough. Like the dinner scene with Lady Dale, and then she's yelling at so they go to dinner, and Susan's telling Lady Dale about the gorgeous passenger, which again, come on, wait, you're not Superman, you're Clark Kent. Like, come on, man.
But it's just like, that was the last 10. They really were filling, because the Jeffersons are out at this point.
Yeah.
So you're already down to 2 storylines. Like,
why wouldn't John Ritter in this scene? Why don't they put glasses on Lady Dale just to break up the face a little bit? Something.
Anything.
So.
Yeah.
So Lady Dale, he's explaining the whole story. And basically, Susan asked him if he'd mind finding somewhere else to sleep tonight.
Smart.
John Ritter's like,
Yep, absolutely. But of course, he gets cucked.
By the cat. Oh, here we go. All right. So a completely oblivious Susan rushes off to meet Dale at the nightclub. This is when it goes down. Lady Dale happens to encounter Captain Steubing, who flirtily insists on getting to know her better and forcibly steers her into his private quarters.
It's uncomfortable. It actually is uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable.
It's a lot.
Well, number one, I was just like, what's going on? Like, this is what?
Yeah, like it's not even like, as creepy as Doc is, it feels like Doc is never holding someone against their will. It really did
like he's essentially kidnapping Lady Dale.
Definitely kidnapping. 100%.
It was just
really twice. Once in the hallway and then definitely in his office.
Well, I mean, in his defense, he's been out at sea a long, long time since Bonnie. You know what I mean? So at least he's consistently goes for redheads. Boom.
It's uncomfortable. It's not.
It is uncomfortable. I don't think it added anything to the story.
No.
It was just, yeah. It didn't age well at all. So basically, he Lady Dale kind of gets out of there saying, I'll come see you tomorrow, which I can't convey how uncomfortable it was. It's just really weird, and I wasn't a fan. All right, let's fast forward. Dennis is now dancing cheek to cheek, which I had an issue with this. Okay, if this woman is such a, and I'm not trying to criticize her, if she's this, no, I can't do this because I'm married, can't do this. That's an awful intimate way of dancing.
Like them. They clearly there was a line she wouldn't cross, but I think she would admit that she was maybe doing a little bit more than she should have as someone who was so into their vows.
Yeah, I thought
you have to have something, but then he leaves.
Well, because he leans in for a kiss.
Yeah, he gets,
and she's like, "No,
there's no coming back from that."
No. So she gives him a quick peck on the cheek, rushes out of the nightclub. It's more Lady Dale and Captain Stubing style. I don't even want it. It's awful. So he goes, Lady Dale goes back to that linen closet to recover like his regular clothes. Well, someone had stolen his clothes. So now he's stuck as Lady Dale. Now scene switches. Julie tells Susan that she checked the passenger list. She couldn't find anyone by the name of Dale Reinhardt. Susan throws a fit and freaks out about how men are always lie and storms out of the nightclub. Again, it's that hallway. They love this hallway thing.
Yeah, they paid for it. They were going to use it.
It was good. Runs into Lady Dale, explains she stood up. And says there's something.
This is all basically, this last thing is just basically a warmed over bosom buddy plot.
It really is.
It's one woman dating both sides of a guy.
Yeah.
There's really nothing more to that. I did think they ended it well, where John Ritter as the woman walks her back to the hotel and then probably just drops his costume, right? And then,
well, here's the thing with that is if we need any more examples of why that lady's nuts, what lady's going to be like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like, and then, then Dale is that. Then the worst part of it happens. Yeah. So next morning, Jeanette asked Julie if she happens to know where Dennis went off to.
Los Angeles.
He went to Los Angeles. Flew back a day early. And then here's a weird scene. So Dale, regular Dale Reinhardt, tells Gopher he wants to book 2 tickets on a future cruise for Mr. and Mrs. Reinhardt. Was Gopher just nothing going on there? Like, wait a minute. How are you on this cruise? We're not even docking yet. How are you on this cruise?
Well, I guess it's like that return. It's that return service. I mean, do people take cruises wrapped around in 2 weeks?
Well,
the big crime here, obviously, is that he is getting married to the person he just met under false pretenses, at the very least, in 2 weeks.
It's so
and then showing
weird.
back up on this boat. It's again arrest all these people.
Just they're crazy. Just a weird way to wrap that up. Like they could have just had them just leaving arm in arm.
Yeah, you didn't have to have them getting married in 2 weeks. That was a lot.
That's fucking weird. So Captain comes over, gives Dale a once-over, tells him he didn't recall seeing him during the cruise, then remarks on how there's something oddly familiar about him. And then when he goes to leave, he squeaks bye in his Lady Dale voice. I thought that was good too. I thought that was cool. Ship docks in Los Angeles. Cheery-looking Maurice and Stella thank Julie for a wonderful cruise and cackle about how being trapped in an elevator for hours was the highlight of their dull-as-hell storyline. Come on. Just
it was kind of just an afterthought.
Enter George and Wheezy, right? Let's just they boom, we bicker, put them in. Just come on.
It is. They were crawling to the finish line.
It was such a shame. But they're adding all this extra bullshit with the dentists and stuff. But again, John Ritter. This was a John Ritter.
So the funniest part was the funniest part at the very end. So Dennis comes back.
Yep.
When she's getting off the boat and he's walking through all the people trying to leave, which has got to be so annoying because you just spent a week on a cruise.
Yeah, you just want to get off.
Everyone's going out.
It's like getting off a plane.
Exactly. Like, don't come back in.
Well, how are they letting people on the ship when they're exiting? It's
Exactly.
very loosey goosey with this ship. I did notice here. So Dennis rushes aboard the ship, just like you said, finds Jeanette and hands her his business card. As he confesses that her shitty husband hired him to follow her around to get proof of her infidelity.
Yeah.
Explained that he flew back to Los Angeles early so he could give her a glowing review and to give the money back to Lucas. He then declares, "I love you," and he'd be more than happy to wait around for however long it takes her to divorce Lucas, who I labeled as the shithead. Jeanette mulls that over and saunters off the ship. Enter Lucas. God, this guy is just a piece of garbage, man.
Just killing scenes.
Just killing. Just no emotion, just
Nope.
dead face. Just good Lord. He asks her how the cruise went. She hands him Dennis's business card and says, "I met your man." Now I noticed Lucas's face it changed just a little bit. Yeah, not much. Lucas suggested.
I always wonder if that was his plot all along. Lucas, maybe he's playing chess.
That's funny to do something. It's almost look. I'm not gonna lie. I remember I dated somebody once where I did that, where I was like, I agreed to something that I didn't want to agree to so that I could use the thing that I agreed to as the linchpin in a breakup.
Right.
I know that's incredibly weak, but it is what it is.
So this is ripped from your headlines.
It's ripped from the headlines. Yeah. See, we're back to Law and Order. See, it's all.
Yeah, so basically she's going to stay in a hotel. Then she tries to get a cab, and who comes?
She gets a cab, and he's in the cab.
Is Dennis Kingston, who I wonder if he had to circle like 40 times in cabs.
Nope, he was just like,
make sure he was there.
Don't you move. I'm Dennis freaking Kingston, hitman.
Keep going around.
And that's how it wrapped up. And it's weird because I look, if we go from the ending of the first one to the second one, I like a nice wrapping things up at the end of the episode back in the ship. Like, I don't want the end of the episode to be one guest leaving, because to me, it's about the love boat. But to your point, that's how little they focused on the crew. They didn't have the whole crew standing together, at the end doing their wrapping it up thing.
I will be curious to see what is the more normal standard episode. Where is it? The crew is rarely in it. There's a crew storyline, or if it's all guests, because
very strange.
That was dramatically different balance than the first one was.
And again, not to beat a dead horse, but just the Captain Steubing portrayal was just like
completely
different. Come on, man. Completely
different character.
Well, he was comic relief almost.
He has a dignified speech at the end to Bonnie Franklin of episode 1, talking about how I understand that I could not give you the husband you deserved and all this stuff. And now he's just like,
they took his hat off and they made him a caricature
or something. Like he's just running around like
he's Commander Lassard from Police Academy now. All of a sudden, like Commandant Lassard. Like, come on.
So yeah, weird. I agree. Weird way to end what was a bonkers second episode.
Second episode.
Like that's a weird one to follow up from week 1, and I wonder how it was received in terms of like, oh, I think this is what the Love Boat is, and then you tune into week 2, and it's like, oh, is this what the Love Boat is? So
weird.
I wonder if it changes every week. I wonder if there's any consistency. Maybe there's not. It'll be interesting to see.
It is interesting.
So we have a new segment that we're trying out. This will be our version of trying to keep track of things, because we're not going to rank all the episodes, and we're certainly not going to rate them, because I don't even know where we would start.
I don't even know what system we'd use. Yeah.
So we're doing some sort of King of the Mountain, which is basically we're just going to have the best episode in the run, and if that week's episode that we're reviewing beats it or not. So last week obviously was the first one we did. So that was the current champion. Mm-hmm. Michael, do you think that this episode was better than episode 1?
Better. I'll tell you this. I'll say the episode is more entertaining. Right?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what we're judging it on.
I'm trying to think.
I'm going to go no, only because I feel like the first one had its share of zaniness, but also had some good quality storytelling. Whereas this one just felt insane at some points. And like I said, definitely missing 10 minutes of something else.
Yeah. I agree with that, and I'll and my thought is, remember Suzanne Summers at the end of the episode, right? We both left that episode with her storyline going, that was nice.
Yeah.
She took that girl under her wing. Granted, they did it like a double shot or a couple double, whatever it is, but
Yeah.
I felt like I liked how it ended.
It was a good piece of television storytelling.
I agree. It portrayed the captain in the way that I feel the captain should be portrayed. It was a little more crew heavy.
Yeah.
So I would say no. I wouldn't say that. I would say that episode 1 is still definitely the king of the hill in my opinion.
Yep. So we'll see how long it has a reign, but that's a 1 week reign extended. So
keeps it going.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for another episode. We will see you soon, and thanks for tuning in.